calling the protesters insurrectionists. Let's bring in New York Times correspondent Helene Cooper, who covers national security issues. Helene, it's good to have you. Your take on where this is heading.
Hi, Mika. Thanks for having me. I'm a little worried this is not heading anywhere good for all of the reasons that Heilemann just laid out, which is that President Trump doesn't have Mark Milley or Mark Esper or any of the people from his previous administration who sort of acted as the brakes on this. Pete Hegseth, the whole Northcom announcement last night that 500 Marines had been put on prepared to deploy orders was an effort by the Pentagon to put order, discipline, and legality behind Pete Hegseth's tweet, in which he said he sort of made up that, Marines are on high alert, which is not necessarily a formal thing. He tweeted that on Saturday and then doubled down on Sunday saying Marines are standing by. As you guys just discussed, we know that to put active duty troops on the streets, President Trump would most likely have to invoke the Insurrection Act, which to my knowledge he has not done yet. So the Pentagon and Northcom tried to catch up with the Defense Secretary by putting these Marines on prepared to deploy orders. There are 29 Palms, about 150 miles east of Los Angeles. The hope at the Pentagon, not among the and I need to differentiate when I say the Pentagon now, because there is the Pentagon that are the political appointees of President Trump, and those people are bending over backwards to get ahead of Trump on everything and to make sure that they are seen as amplifying everything that President Trump says. And then there is the professional Pentagon, the military people, and the career Pentagon. The career Pentagon was sort of scrambling last night to figure out what to do. The last thing they want is active duty troops taking on protesters on American streets. They fought mightily against that during the George Floyd protests. And this is something that nobody thought that these demonstrations that seemed to be sort of routine demonstrations on Friday night would ignite into something that will require this level of military intervention, especially when you have coming up this weekend this Trump military parade, Army birthday military parade that Washington, D.C. is bracing for. You had all of these M1 Abrams tanks arriving. There's going to be all this military hardware rolling down the streets of Washington, D.C. And then there's a very real worry again among the career and professional military of this sort of look that we are militarizing the country.
Yeah, Helene, you mentioned the parallel that has been sort of obvious to me as I watched these images over the weekend, which is the Black Lives Matter protests that became riots, that became a politically useful cudgel for this administration the last time we saw it happen. I just am staggered always when I see the demographics of Los Angeles in full view. It's 48% Hispanic or Latino. Right? That's why this target, this quote-unquote invasion, this quote-unquote insurrection is so useful also, is that there is a real spasm of desperation when it comes to that city. But the professional Pentagon that you're talking about, do we expect them to actually manifest that discomfort in public? Or is that going to be relegated to the backstage, unseen, kind of, we'll report this later kind of a view?
I think right now, I don't expect to see this manifest in public. I think things are going to have to get a lot worse. If you get to the point where American troops are being asked or tasked with shooting protesters, you will then see this discomfort manufacture in public. Right now, what you're seeing is just sort of they are still trying to salute and carry on. They're going to do within, there's this phrase that General Mark Milley used to always use, and he said lawful orders. Right now, the orders are lawful. Right now, they have not been asked to do anything that I can see that could be interpreted as an unlawful order, but I think things could come to a head pretty quickly. You talk about the demographics of Los Angeles. Well, the demographic of the American military is pretty diverse, despite all of Pete Hegseth's attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion and DEI and so-called woke policies. You're looking at one of the most, if not the most diverse institutions that America has. So, there's going to be a lot of conflict there when you start dragging troops who are not prepared to do law enforcement, domestic law enforcement on the streets of America into this. This is like moving from, and it was so funny yesterday, one military official said to me that he found it very interesting that instead of spending a weekend talking about Trump and Elon Musk, we were spending a weekend talking about these military, about invoking bringing the National Guard in and these protests in LA and a lot of the professional military people at the Pentagon appear to view this as sort of a political exercise to change the topic of conversation and to change the subject.
That's a pretty big distraction. We'll be talking to Senator Chris Murphy in a moment about that. New York Times correspondent covering national security issues, Helene Cooper. Thank you very much for your reporting this morning.